part 2 of the series, I think it was mostly the editing that made it feel like it was another one of his conspiracy theory videos.
Like when Shane's reaction to was like, oh my God, sociopaths. And like Katie said something along the lines of like, yeah, it's really gross, huh? And she said like a few other things, like kind of just saying like they're bad people. And that's when I was like, ugh.
Dear Shane Dawson, you are scaring the children!
My head hurts. After part 2 of Shane Dawson's series about Jake Paul, Katie Morton, the therapist Shane interviewed, received so much backlash that she had to put out this video.
I've gotten a few comments, not a ton, but just a few comments that I think it's kind of important to address your concerns. Now, those comments that I received were people saying that they were like disappointed that I would say that that sociopaths or people with antisocial personality disorder can't be fixed. And that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they don't care to be. And that's because if you listen to the whole video, you have to understand that people who are sociopaths don't feel bad about themselves. They don't want to get better. And so it's not really that we're saying they're unfixable and they're terrible and blah, you should stay away from them. It's just like they don't really feel bad. And also a lot of people are talking about sociopath and psychopath being different words. One's born with it, one's created. And I know that there's a lot of information online that supports that, but diagnostically speaking, from a clinician standpoint, there is no difference. Just to address the people that are like, how dare you talk about sociopaths as they are and like dehumanize them. I'm not dehumanizing them. What I'm doing is telling people what to look out for, because if you haven't recognized this, sociopaths, sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder, they don't have empathy for other people and often utilize other people to further their own gain, which can be really hurtful to a lot of us. And that means that if there's only 4% of the population, 4% of population, otherwise known as 1 in 25 people, have this, I don't want any of us to fall victim to their manipulation. And sure, those people, that can make them sound like they're bad people, but if you're using people for your own gain and not in a thoughtful manner, and if you're not helping people in a loving manner, then I'm sorry, but I'm going to protect the 96% of people who might be negatively affected. And if you are the 4%, then you should get help. But we know, statistically speaking, that those with antisocial personality disorder don't get help. We need to be more aware. We need to talk about it more. Nobody talks about it. That's really the whole goal of the video, is just to educate and let you know. That's it. Just know that, like most of my viewers, you know, like bullying or shit talking or like harassing people is never going to get you anywhere in the community, and I'll just block you everywhere. As many different, profiles as you can create, because that's just not nice. And I think overall, I'm just upset that people would think that I would want to stigmatize mental illness more. It just shows you don't know me, and I think that's sad to me and disappointing, because I have like 1,000 videos to prove the opposite thing.
Shane even apologized for his horror movie style editing.
It's like complicated to even explain, because some people are mad that we're talking about sociopaths and that it's like dehumanizing and that it's offensive, and that was my initial fear with this whole thing. That's why it took me so long to do this. I wanted to do this for months, but I kept saying, never mind, I don't want to offend anybody. I've had professionals around me the whole time. The therapist I worked with, my actual psychiatrist who I worked with on this, off camera, and many other people who very much know their shit. So I know why people are sensitive, saying, oh, you made it scary or creepy, or oh, my friend's a sociopath. I know, and they're offended, and I totally get it. I understand. I was nervous about it. But the reason I made it scary and creepy was so people would watch it. Because if I made it like a standard video where I just sat there and was like, oh, interesting, they don't feel, okay, next topic, people wouldn't care. And if people don't care, they don't watch it. And if they don't watch it, they don't know the warning signs, and less people know what to look for. Because, and once again, I'm talking about full-fledged sociopaths, right? Now knowing all of the information you got in today's video, yes, it was sensationalized and there was crazy clips and stuff to make it interesting. My main thing I wanted to get across was, number one, I'm sorry if I offended anybody. If you are offended for someone who has this or thinks they have this, I am sorry. But just know, my intentions were not bad. My intentions were to make something interesting, to show a side of personality disorders that nobody talks about. If you think you are a sociopath, you're probably not. Just putting that out there. Like, if you're like, maybe I'm a you're not. Like, it's not like that. I don't even know how else to explain it, because it's so complicated. Which is why I think people are mad, because they're like, you didn't explain it right. It's like, yeah, because it's almost impossible to explain. For me, it just opened up a bigger conversation, which is what I wanted. Which is like, this is something we don't talk about. I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm moving on with the series. I'm going to definitely be more sensitive about making things scary and sensationalizing it. I totally understand that I took it to like level 10 because I love horror movies and I was like excited, and I should have held back, and I'm sorry for that.
Shane felt so terrible about it, he said he refilmed some parts to address part 2. It made me wonder why people were feeling bad for sociopaths. Not that we shouldn't care about them, but people seem to be dismissing their reckless, deceitful, and manipulative behavior. But then, I came across countless stories from real sociopaths, and realized that we are highly uneducated. Katie's explanation wasn't wrong. She was reading directly from the manual medical professionals use to diagnose sociopathy. It's the fact that not enough was said. It was oversimplified. Yes, the symptoms she listed are real, but it wasn't explained in detail. Plus, the video was edited in a very dramatic way, and there was a focus on the manipulative side of sociopaths, which caused panic among the online community. We often forget manipulation can be something as small as telling someone the last sandwich in the fridge has expired so we can eat it ourselves. Not all sociopaths want to destroy you, and not all sociopaths want power. Some might say there's a spectrum to sociopathy, and some might say it's so complex that even a spectrum is oversimplifying it. Here's some insight from a real sociopath. I am a sociopath. I have a diagnosis. I'm not going off what I read or watched on the internet like a lot of people tend to do. Sociopathy is just another mental illness, deeply stigmatized and far less dramatic than Shane's video was suggesting. You speak about sociopaths being manipulative and destructive to get what they want, but my question is, what is this goal that sociopaths wish to achieve? What do we want? It seems like the answer is power or status, the way you and others put it. But that's not true. Sociopaths are people. Empaths are people. Some sociopaths want power, and our means to achieve it can harm others or ourselves. Personally, obviously, I don't care about that. Not in the slightest. Some sociopaths do not want power. Simple as that. Meanwhile, some empaths want power, and even empaths can trick or deceive to get the power they want. They'll just feel bad about it afterwards. And then, some empaths do not want power. Sociopaths should not be lumped together when talking about the manipulation aspect, deceit, danger, and so on, as if every sociopath is made with a desire to conquer. A want can be as small as wanting the last tuna sandwich in the fridge at work but not owning it, medium as wanting an expensive pair of shoes, large as wanting things that are dangerous and harmful. This way of life, of using others, isn't something we set out to do daily. It's something that undeniably happens because it's what works the best, and we don't feel bad about doing it. But it's not something we set out to do in some kind of mission for success beyond all others. Being a sociopath does not equal wanting societal advantage or to be in charge of the world. It's true that I personally need to be in charge of myself, what happens in life, with what happens around me personally, but I don't go out to rip others apart to get ahead of them. As for enjoying the little things in life, who says we can't enjoy them? We do not have empathy or remorse, this is blazing and obvious, but we understand emotions. We see them around us constantly. We see them in people and on television and movies and in books. We can see it, copy what we see, and even though the emotion or feeling is chosen, it is what we feel. We can choose to enjoy it. It may not be an empath's definition of enjoy, but it's as close as we can get to the automatic enjoyment empaths live with and have. You mentioned having cats. I have a dog. I've had dogs, cats, gerbils, fish, birds, because I wanted them. I wanted to have them, to tend to them, to care for them, to give them and make them feel what I never have. Because I choose to enjoy doing it. I'm not blind to how cute these animals are, or how cute my dog is. I'm not blind to the satisfaction I get from having control over this creature, of having her rely on me. However, the love I feel for her, the caring, it is chosen, and the enjoyment is chosen. To the best of my ability, I choose to feel this. Perhaps, as someone with DID, with alters in the system who are empaths, I do have an advantage, because I can see what emotions and feelings are like inside people who share my headspace, my body. However, my sibling doesn't have DID and also has a dog, and like me, chooses to care for him and deprive a chosen version of enjoyment from that. Do not feel sad for us. We don't need it. We don't feel it, and we don't care. Some of us even choose to enjoy or love things that you assume none of us do, because we don't feel things automatically. Choice is a powerful thing, and it has to be used wisely, especially with brains wired as ours are. You say it's all about go, go, go. Who can I manipulate next? What can I change up next? Again, that's untrue. As I've already stated, it's not something we purposefully bound into the world seeking to do. It's what comes up for us when there is something we want, big or small. We are not robots wired to seek success. We are robots, period. Robots that are wired to have a consciousness and intelligence. And we are thrown into a society and expected to fit in and find our way around. For some, finding their way around is stomping on every leaf to reach the top of the tree. For others, we find a branch and build a nest. We manipulate deliberately if we really want something. We do it accidentally too, because we don't understand how we make people feel unless they tell us. We can learn from it and try not to do it if we so desire. Naturally, a lot of us don't. I never try to make anyone feel better if I've offended them. It's not my fault. Plus, I don't feel remorse. But come on. We're not wired to conquer. We're wired to live, like everyone else, just wired differently. Not every person is a tool. Most are irrelevant, which is where antisocial comes in. When they stand in the way of what we want, they are a tool. When they are someone who seeks to understand us, is not irrelevant, is someone who shares interests, yet is not someone we need to use to get something, that's where friendships and relationships are formed. We may work them or feel them differently to empaths, but that doesn't make them any less real. Like I said, choice is as strong as real emotions, possibly even stronger. And here's an excerpt from another sociopath. Trigger warning, violent story ahead. I've never killed anyone, but I've certainly wanted to. I may have a disorder, but I'm not crazy. I was not a victim of child abuse, and I'm not a murderer or a criminal. I was not a victim of child abuse, and I'm not a murderer or a criminal. I'm an accomplished attorney and law professor. I donate 10% of my income to charity and teach Sunday school for the Mormon Church. I have a close circle of family and friends whom I love and who very much love me. I don't mean to give the impression that you shouldn't worry about sociopaths. Just because I'm high-functioning and nonviolent doesn't mean there aren't a lot of stupid, uninhibited, or dangerous sociopaths out there. I myself try to escape people like that. After all, it's not like all sociopaths give each other hall passes to avoid harassment. Despite having imagined it many times, I've never slit anyone's throat. I wonder, though, had I been raised in a more abusive home, whether I would have blood on my hands. People who commit heinous crimes, sociopath or empath, are not more damaged than anyone else, but they seem to have less to lose. It's easy to imagine the 16-year-old version of myself being handcuffed in an orange jumpsuit. If I had no one to love or nothing to achieve, perhaps. It's hard to say. Knowledge is powerful, isn't it? There's a lot we don't know, and we should just be more aware of this mental illness, especially because it's so common.
Sociopaths are also people. Something that we learn in school and in our training is that instead of referring to people as she's the bipolar, she's the anxious one, he's the depressed one. We were taught to not frame mental illness in that way because that takes the humanity and the people out of the mental illness. So instead of she's the anxious one, she's a human, a person who happens to have anxiety disorder, because that person is more than their illness. And I understand that it could be kind of more difficult with someone with an antisocial personality disorder because they don't feel empathy, they don't feel these things, so what's the point? That could be a line of thought. They're not human. I think that was something that I felt like was being crafted in the narrative. And I wanted to emphasize, as a professional and as a viewer, and as also an empath myself, that people with antisocial personality disorder are also people. In their pursuit of this thing that they are literally just risking everything for, they're destructive to themselves.
And while sociopathic tendencies can be genetic, more often than not, it's developed through a traumatic childhood experience. So bringing this mental illness to light also encourages parents to be better parents.
There are so many mental illnesses that are the result of childhood trauma. So we have to step our game up as parents. We have to make sure that we're not having a kid just for the sake of having a kid. We need to make sure we are bringing people into this world who can be nurtured emotionally and everything like that so they can develop properly, or else they turn into these 25-year-old men or women who do awful things. And then we have to start questioning, well, is it their fault or is it their upbringing's fault? How much free will did they have? I study a lot about neuroscience, like traumatic events as a child, it is scientifically proven to rewire the brain.
Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully, Katie and Shane are able to explain this topic better in part 3.